Hello and welcome to another edition of GreenFleet Talks. My name is Kate Armitage and I am joined today in the hot seat by Duncan Webb, who is Fleet Director at the AA. Duncan, it's lovely to speak to you again.
Good to speak to you again, Kate, as well.
I can see that you've taken some time out of your busy day because you're on the road today, which is very much appreciated, so thank you. Duncan, we talk a lot to the AA at GreenFleet, and you're always up to some really interesting stuff. So why don't you just give me a little overview of some of the projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have one of the best jobs in the industry, I think, in terms of I'm lucky enough to lead. I'm very proud to lead the fleet that the AA runs in the UK, and that's predominantly roadside vans that people will know and love. But it's also a massive driving school, business teaching the future drivers, and as well as looking after all of our company car. In the AA, we're always on the side of the driver, and therefore, what I do from a fleet perspective predominantly has to make sense for our customers first off, okay, and that's very, very clear in my thinking in relation to adoption of EV or hydrogen tech. We've done a lot of testing. I've now described that we call it a bridge to EV because we're very much in a scaling approach, but we're doing that in a very sensible way so we can still serve customers in the moment of distress or in their moment of learning. We still want to be on the side of the driver as we go through this, but we're very proud that we have cut our emissions in terms of emissions per task yearly for the last 4 years, and we're going to be net zero by 2035.
Oh, and you said that with great confidence, Duncan, which is a pleasure to hear.
We will.
Yeah.
I look at my car fleet right now, my company car fleet. We're virtually there. We're virtually there. I don't have a diesel or petrol vehicle on my car fleet anymore. 60% of it's pure EV, 40% is hybrid. We're sort of done on our own car fleet. The driving school will move as our instructors and franchisees want to move, and the vans is the tougher part for us. But we'll make sure we deliver that.
Great. And Duncan, because obviously the AA is a really important part of the whole motoring industry, and a lot of fleets, I think, are looking to you to understand how the AA is going about this. So you've got a lot of experience that you can offer. Today, we're talking about SMEs. So let's think about what you've learned and how that can kind of lead the way for some of the smaller businesses. What would you say are some of the common barriers that SMEs face when switching to electric vehicles and meeting wider sustainability goals?
Yeah, I'd actually start with where do you start? Because some small medium enterprises, they're fleet of foot companies. They don't necessarily have the luxury to invest in a fleet manager or have the luxury to invest in a sustainability lead. Okay, so actually the most common barrier I find in SMEs is knowing where to start. Okay, and go to the AA website. We've got some brilliant papers on this sort of stuff. We call them yellow papers. There's stuff that you can just reference off the internet, but on our site, it's our material, so it's unbiased in its messaging. So just knowing where to start, and that then has multiple dimensions, because you think about, well, it's about their business at the end of the day, but then you have to worry about, where do I start in relation to a vehicle? Where do I start in relation to charging infrastructure? Where do I start in relation? You might not even understand what is scope 1 versus scope 2 versus scope 3. So, I actually think the most genuine common barrier is the assumption that we think SMEs know what the challenge is. Okay? And I genuinely think we can help the market, and the bigger players in the market can help make that easier to understand.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with you. And your point that, a lot of SMEs don't have a dedicated fleet manager. This is not necessarily front of mind. It's not a top priority. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I would be surprised if I came across an SME who was talking about scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, because apart from their procurement processes, it's probably not on their radar at all.
No, but the one thing is common is people will start to source this way.
Yeah.
Government will be first in sourcing in a way that says, can you meet these criteria? Businesses like the AA, private businesses we won't be far behind. So ultimately it is about your business doing business. So, at some point you've got to get on with this, because the market is going to take you that way.
Yeah, and there's a risk that you'll be left behind, like you say. And when it comes to, bidding for contracts, you may no longer be eligible if you haven't kept pace with what the market's doing. So
absolutely,
very, very key point, I think. We now also you've mentioned referencing AA's yellow papers. You go to the internet and you're looking for unbiased sources of information, and it can be very difficult to find those. And I think it does inevitably lead to a lot of myths and a lot of common misinformation about electric vehicles that quite regularly is in the mainstream press. What's the most frequently quoted piece of misinformation that you come across, and how would you disprove it and kind of reassure SMEs?
That's one hell of a question. At a very high level, a very simple view where people just go, they just don't work. And you go, okay, let's pare that back. Why don't they work? And then people go, okay, you got range anxiety, you got charging anxiety, potentially you got cost anxiety within that. Directly for the AA, the one we get quoted most common is everybody is running out of EV charge and breaking down on the side of roads. They're not. Okay. No. 1.8% of our jobs are because on electric vehicles are because people have run out of a charge.
Yeah.
Right? 1% of our jobs is because people have run out of diesel and petrol.
Yeah.
So we're on par with Norway, which has got the largest density of EVs in the in Europe, in terms of breakdown call-outs. But getting over that hurdle and that barrier to go, they don't work. It's too easy to say that, but it is probably the most generic common reference I hear, which is they just don't work. Well, they do. There's 1 million of them on the road. There's going to be tens of millions of them on the road by year 2030. And at the end of the day, our legislative agenda is taking us this way as a country. So again, you can't live with the they don't work message. You have to work out how your business has to be different to work within what is going to be a couple of limitations.
Yeah, that's great advice. And we can't argue with the evidence, Duncan. Like you say, you've got there's 1 million EVs out on the roads. A lot of them have cover with you, and only 1.8% of your call outs are relating to the battery. And I say running out of charge. I'm expecting that people don't actually run out of charge. They get to a charge point, they can't get it to work, and they haven't got enough to go on to the next one, which is the same effectively as running out. But
it is, but everybody thinks everybody's running out. They're not. Okay, no, they're not. No. 98.2% of the jobs we do on an electric vehicle is probably common to a diesel vehicle, i.e. the 12-volt battery isn't working, or
tires.
I got a tire problem, or I've locked my keys out, or so human dimensions. We do a lot of work around human dimensions where the humans failed, not the vehicles failed. 98.2% of the time it's exactly, there's a constancy in that. So don't get hung up on that, everyone.
No, great. Great bit of myth busting there.
Yep,
Thank
indeed.
you.
Thank you.
And I know, again, coming back to the AA, you have been monitoring this market for since the beginning, you know, and you've undertaken a very carefully planned and measured rollout and testing and learning process around not just electric vehicles, but also a lot of zero emission or low emission vehicles that are out there. So taking that knowledge, what advice would you give to SMEs when they're beginning to assess whether EVs would work for them?
Yeah, again, it's don't just focus on it's the vehicle. Okay, I think there are different aspects you should focus on. Yes, the vehicle's important. Okay, and I have a very simple view of, if you're not quite sure if the vehicle is going to work for you, go and rent one. Go and rent one for a couple of months. Don't overstretch your business. Okay, go and rent one, and then see what other dynamics that influences, okay? Because that will influence human dynamics, okay, around how people feel when they drive the vehicle, which might lead you to say, right, I need some training or something like that, okay? Once you've got one of those vehicles, it will change your customer dynamics potentially, because you might turn up and the customers go, ooh, that's different. I really value that, and you might not have appreciated the customer valuing the vehicle in the way it does. But the biggest thing it allows you to do is test the operating model you want to run for your customers to still be brilliant without actually overstretching yourself financially in the short term. And what we shouldn't hide from is, does an EV just replace a diesel and everything's the same? No, it's never going to be like that. It's never going to be like that. It does change how your business has to work to still be successful, and not acknowledging that at the front is just ignoring what is going to come and bite your bum, basically. So it's for me, go and get yourself one on a little short-term rental, and give it a go. Don't overcommit yourself. You don't have to come buy a big one and commit long-term leases or anything like that. But I think by doing that, you will test the other dynamics that will affect you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Duncan. And first of all, it's risk-free, but also almost definitely the concerns that you had are probably not valid, but it may, as you've said, throw up some operational challenges that hadn't been anticipated. So it's a great way just to see how it fits with your business without financially committing yourself.
And one thing we've seen in the AA is connected vehicle data because of the EV transformation that's going on.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It's just amazing. So the vehicle is a really clever computer on wheels driving around. It can tell you so much stuff. So we would have been used to historically put a telemetry system on, see what's going on. These vehicles are amazing now. They can tell you in real time what's going on. It can tell you whether they think they've got a problem on something. They can tell you where you go to fix that problem. They can do that proactively. You can log on to them remotely. The connected car solution, okay, and just to reassure you, we do have connected car solutions embedded into the AA so that we know we can help people at the roadside very much. But the connected car that comes with having an EV actually might give you a totally different insight on your person on the road or your individual on the road in relation to, serving customers or just how they're behaving.
Yeah, I mean, a great example again of where there are some hidden benefits of running an EV with this. They're modern vehicles, they've got a lot more tech, not to mention the fact that they're more pleasurable to drive, and the servicing and maintenance frequently is a dream compared to a diesel equivalent. So lots of hidden benefits that that an SME can discover with a rental?
The maintenance of an electric vehicle is materially lower, both at a cost level, at a time level, than a diesel and petrol vehicle will ever be.
Yeah, I've heard that reported many times, and it's my experience as well. I'm gonna wrap up, Duncan, with a topic that won't go away, which is the ZEV mandate that we have in this country, which is announced but a long time coming, and then the dates are shifting and how the measure shifts. How do you think all of this is being received by SMEs? Is it cause for them to delay their electrification plans? What do you think?
I think most SMEs wouldn't even know what the ZEV mandate was if I was being honest. Okay, I think if anything, it's I mean, the ZEV mandate, they have changed a lot to make it more workable over the next 3 to 4 years, and I think the changes, as a general statement that the government's announced, are sensible. Okay, I think that still leaves us a bit of a cliff edge in year 2030 when you look at it, though, that everybody's facing. But in relation to SMEs, the thing I really like about it is it now gives manufacturers more freedom to sell non-full ZEVs for a bit longer, so that would be hybrids, and get credit for doing so, and therefore making sure that SMEs can really engage with that journey up until about 2029-30, when that's when the cliff edge sort of comes, because the reality is that cliff edge was year 2026, and a lot of SMEs wouldn't have been ready for that. So I actually think it gives manufacturers a lot more time and SMEs more time. It also gives second cycle vehicles more time to come through the market, because as a country, we've not really experienced second cycle EVs in real volumes just now into the marketplace. Yes, it's becoming more volumetric right now. Okay. But the vehicles we're buying now should be on the way out again in 4 years' time to a second stage market out of primary markets. So for me, the delay is ultimately a good thing. My advice again would be, though, don't just mean, okay, I can do nothing for 3 years now, because you have to engage with it, because if year 2030, it is pretty severe then in terms of the things that then come to fruition in that year. But overall, I think the government's listened without changing the overall top level goals. The scheme's been reworked, and I think that's helpful for demand and supply markets. So
great,
pretty good at the moment, that one.
Great. Okay, so I guess the key message is here: keep calm and carry on. Don't wait until the cliff edge comes. And in the background, we're continuing to try and make this process of transitioning through the ZEV mandate as smooth as possible for the OEMs and for the end users.
Yep, use the AA website. We are on the side of the driver. We always have been. We're very pleased. We're 120 years old, and we've always been on the side of the driver. So our website, we try and do what we can, and it is impartial, always impartial advice. So do reference that.
Great. Well, Duncan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, of course, to the AA for joining GreenFleet Talks, and thank you for tuning in. Please tune in to GreenFleet Television again soon.